Hey everybody, so this is A.R.S.E, a random Stunner explains. I'll do a quick update on 3 Atlas, and then I want to talk about the forensic mythology of Norse mythology. Yeah, something like that. Anyways, I want to get into the story of Thor and Odin and the ice giants. But before that, so the 3 Atlas 7 jets behavior is appears to be it's not natural. So meaning that the jets are pushing against the solar wind because it was close to the sun, with more force than what would be expected from um, a natural explosion of gas, I guess. So it doesn't appear to be a gas, and more, like I said in the other video, a jet of some type. And there's 7 of them that appear to be like in a circle around it. And with the 3 facing sunward, like I said, they're pushing against the solar wind with more force than can be naturally explained. The color thing, it's still blue right now. So like I said, it went from red to green to blue. The shards, so like I said, the image I saw showed like a plume or a cloud of like what would I guess be some type of metal or nickel, because 3 Atlas is made of nickel. But it seemed to be like literally, thousands or tens of thousands of pieces, maybe up to millions, in a large cloud that's being pushed by the solar wind. At the moment, it seems to be pushing it away from our solar plane, which is a good thing because it won't, you know, um, cause any damage to Earth. Like I said in the other video, there was an Egyptian record of metal falling from the sky, so maybe it's happened before where like the Earth has passed through like the debris field of a metallic comet or something, whatever 3 Atlas is. If it is natural, it's a comet. Anyway, so on to Thor and Odin and ice giants. I mean, I'm not sure how far into the Norse deep mythology I want to get. I'm just going to explain where the story of Ragnarok originated from, and what and how it's connected to the Younger Dryas event. So the ice giants. In the story, Thor and Odin, go to another realm and they fight the ice giants on their planet, and they defeat them. Okay, so that event, Ragnarok and all that stuff, the burning of the earth, Thor and Odin, the ice giants being defeated, is the Younger Dryas event. There's the Upper and Younger Dryas event, and they're about, I think it's 13,000, and then 11,6, 12,8. It's about 1,200 years apart. And so in the video on The Lost Sailor, where I bring up the star falling to the ground and killing everybody. So I want to mention a few other what would be considered mythological stories that all relate to the same event. I want to start with the Greek story of A.R.S.E, which is about somebody or 2 people, a father and son flying too close to the sun, the feathers melting and falling to earth, followed by A.R.S.E himself. Okay, so that story is the Greek version of the Younger Dryas event of the comet that I mentioned. Also about, coming and killing, everybody in North America, Northern Europe, and Northern Asia. That comet, like I said, would appear to have come from Sirius, the dog star. The Inuit have a story about a goddess falling out of a canoe, but first her fingers are cut off and they fall, and then she falls, and then she falls in the ocean, and her fingers and herself become all the sea creatures. Um, so there's that. The Aboriginal have a story about a goddess coming to Earth and walking on Earth and leaving ice in her footprints. The South American tribes had a very accurate lunar and solar calendar. I mean, they could track eclipses. The South American people, the Inca and Maya, in northern South America, and then the rest of South America, the Inca, and then the Amazonian people, which were eradicated by disease. They all had detailed or advanced knowledge of the movement of the stars and the sun. Like they were aware of the galactic plane. This is pretty interesting, actually. So 5 million years ago, the sun, our sun, left the galactic plane, and it goes on oscillating travel through our galaxy. It goes up and down through the galactic plane on 60 million year cycles, meaning that it goes up for 30 million years and then down for 30 million years, kind of like up and down a hill. And then in the median or the middle would be the galactic plane itself. 65 million years ago, we were passing through, and that's when we encountered probably what killed off the dinosaurs, the Yucatan strike. So the Gulf of Mexico is a remnant of a comet hitting the Earth. And if you look at the size of the Gulf of Mexico, you can imagine how big it was and the devastation it caused, which killed off the dinosaurs 65 million years ago. 5 million years ago, like I said, the difference of 60 million years, we left the galactic plane. So, like, as we were passing through the galactic plane, there's more space debris. So, the sun itself, I don't want to go too far out into this, but it's like on a 400 million year. I think it's 480 million years, and around there. Like that's how long it takes for it to travel around the galaxy, our sun. And then, like I said, on that path, it goes up and down to the galactic plane on 60 million year intervals. So, anyways, though, back to Thor and Odin killing the ice giants. So the Upper Dryas event, which would have been 12,800 years ago, was the comet, I believe, that hit the Earth and caused devastation, would probably destroyed Atlantis. And then in its wake was a freeze. Like if you go to, if you just Google it, like Upper Dryas and mini ice age, you'll come across records of temperature. Like there was a temperature drop. There was glaciers all the way down into like the 50 states, like halfway, huge miles high glaciers all across North America, Europe, and Northern Asia. So these glaciers, what were known to the Norse as the ice giants. Okay, so 11,600 years ago, there was a solar storm. The paper on this is pretty interesting. I read it, and so it talks about, and this solar storm is like, you guys won't believe like what happened in its wake, or like the mythology that it inspired all over the world. But going back to the Norse story of Thor and Odin, so this solar storm happened 11,600 years ago. It was huge. The paper said that it more than likely caused anywhere from weeks to months long lightning and storms. You know what I'm saying? Like lightning constantly, 24 hours a day for weeks or even months. Lightning's hot, so that lightning, Thor or Odin, I guess Thor and Odin, because it hits the glaciers and melts them, rapidly, and that causes the flood. This is the flood that's referenced in all over the world. The biblical flood is something else. I've covered that in another video. The biblical flood is a reference to the Black Sea inundation. The flood of the Younger Dryas event is the one that's recorded by the indigenous Americans in their tale of the four worlds. It's, you know, like I said, it's, if you want to look up the paper for it, it's called Pulse Water Event B. And just if you type that into Google, you'll come across plenty of papers, you know, describing the rise of the sea levels and all that stuff. Like there was like a 400-foot rise in sea levels. So that rise in sea level, okay, like I said, I don't want to go too far off track. So the Sumerians have a story where a man walks out of the water and teaches them civilization. Interestingly enough, about the Sumerian language is that there's two distinct sets of words for like what would be considered like simple objects, you know, like that just exist in agriculture, and then what would be considered technological or not scientific, but you know, like a specialist, like a brewer, baker, you know, farmer, fisherman, navigator, you know, saying all those type of words. They come from two distinct dialects. So in the Sumerian stories, so there's a man that walks out of the water, and he teaches them civilization. Okay, there's a book called Handbag of the Gods by Mr. Graham Hancock, who is one of my personal heroes. He talks about a worldwide myth of a knowledge bringer. But I don't want to go too far off the track. I want to get back to Thor and Odin and why I think it's a retelling or telling of the Younger Dryas event. So if you go back to the solar storm, it causes all this lightning that melts the glaciers, it causes a flood. But before it melts the glaciers, it burns all of like North America, Northern Europe, and North Asia. There's like what's called the black mat. If you look that up, there's literally just burnt earth all across this area, all across the northern regions of the planet. And so that was caused by those lightning, that week's month-long lightning storm, which then melted the glaciers and caused a flood, which caused the sea levels to rise, which flooded coastal cities all over the world. So like there was a city off the coast of India. There's a city in Southeast Asia. There's these really interesting ruins off the coast of Japan. The Bimini Road off the coast of the Atlantic on the eastern United States. So, speaking of sunken cities, there's one off the coast of Cuba that was last above water 50,000 years ago, which is a whole completely different thing in itself. But interesting enough, 50,000 years ago, there was also another solar storm. But going back to the one that caused the Younger Dryas events and inspired the story of Thor, Odin, and the ice giants. Yeah, so that was a solar flare. It's if you look it up, you'll find the papers for it. I want to say which university would probably have the best paper. UC Santa Cruz, probably. That's the one that I read that I really liked. But there's plenty of them. You'll find one. So, like I said, you have the Upper Dryas event, which was the comet hitting Earth, which is told in stories all over the world. Like I mentioned, the story of A.R.S.E, which talks about a jealous dog being dead to the world. Icarus, you know, about flying too close to the sun and falling back to the world. The Inuit story about the goddess falling out of the canoe of the sky and falling to the earth. There's stories all over the world, you know, saying about that event, and that was 12,800 years ago. And then that caused a brief ice age, a mini ice age, in, you know, the northern parts of the world. And then 1,200 years later, you have that solar storm that melts that ice and causes the flood, which is remembered, in a lot of different cultures all over the world. So about the solar flare, that I was gonna I'll get into this in another video. So the Egyptian obsession with the dead ties back to that solar flare because one of the interesting things about the sun's plasma is that it's capable of reanimating the recently deceased. So or it's able to animate a corpse, I guess, if because we have electricity in our bodies, and so the sun's plasma, has electricity. That solar flare led to like the whole mummy thing, and vampires, like all those undead mythological creatures all tie back to that one solar event 11,600 years ago, which I'll cover in another video. I just wanted to do the real quick Norse mythology story and tell you why it's a very accurate description of what happened, during and after that solar event. Because Ragnarok, of course, is the burning of the earth, and that describes, like I said, that whole black mat you find all over the northern parts of the world. So I guess that's it. Good night, y'all. Namaste. Like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Good night.